Hi there, my name is Abu and welcome to my channel. Now in today's video I have something very exciting to introduce you to if you haven't heard about it already, and that is Next.js. Now what is Next.js, you might ask? Basically it's a framework for React. If you've used React before, we know React is a library and we have to install other packages to make React run smoother. But Next.js is a framework on the other hand, meaning that it's a complete solution. And that is the most exciting thing about Next.js. Basically, you might not need to install any other packages in order for you to use Next.js. And that is one of my favorite things about Next.js. Now, the other favorite thing that I love about Next.js is that it does what is called server-side rendering. Now, you might ask, what is server-side rendering? This basically means that your code can be loaded on the server first before it's loaded to the client. Now, this comes with very nice and very awesome features at hand. That is SEO. If you worked with search engine optimization before, we know in React it was so hard, and this is something that everyone was talking about. It's so hard for you to optimize your website for search engines, but with Next.js, with server-side rendering, you can fully optimize your website and fully optimize it for search engines like Google or any other one that you can think about. Now the other thing is code splitting. Code splitting is an awesome concept and an awesome feature of Next.js. Basically what it means that it only loads to the user what they need. It doesn't load the entire code base to the user, and this makes it very fast for the user, and the experience of the user is gonna be awesome, and they'll always come back to your website. Just imagine someone is on your website and they're not spending any time loading pages. Now code splitting does that in the back end for you. And one of my favorite ones as well is that there's a huge community right now for Next.js. This means that if you have a problem, any issue with your code when you're building your application, someone somewhere has found that issue already, and they've asked that question, and that question has been answered by the huge community that Next.js has already as we speak right now. So what are you waiting for? I'll introduce you to it. Let's get our hands dirty, and you can learn a little bit about Next.js by building a complete blog application with Next.js on the front end, and we have Sanity as our back end that will hold our posts and it will hold our images. Are you excited for this? I know I am. So let's jump in on our computers and we can get started. So the first thing we're going to do is just how I start every project that I do, a new project. I'm going to go to GitHub and create a new repository. So for this blog project, I'm just going to call my project Digital Insights. I'll keep it public, leave everything the way it is. This README file is going to be created by Next.js when we install it. So I'll just create my repository. So for this project, I'll be using the Microsoft's VS Code. So I'll just copy this and back to VS Code, and I'll just clone a Git repository straight away from here, and I'll just paste this in, and I'll clone this Git repository, and I want to just put it on my desktop over there, and I will select that as my Git repository. So over down here you can see it's creating the repository for me, and now it's asking if I want to open that clean repository. So I'll just open it, and this is my fresh repository called Digital Insights, as you can see up here. So I don't need this. And after doing that, now I have everything in sync. I have my local repository and I have my online repository in GitHub. So the next thing we want to do is we want to begin with the Next 13. So onto the documentation of Next 13. And as you can see here, you have everything that you need to begin with, but you can read this at your own time. But what I'm interested in is the installation. So when I come to installation, it's telling you need Node.js above version 16.8, and all I need to do is copy this. I can actually click on this button here to copy it, and back to VS Code, and I can open my terminal. That's Control+tilde, opens me a terminal here. Perfect. And I can just paste this by right clicking, and I'll just install Next 13. So while the Next 13 is installing, a few things you can see. It's asking you if you want to name your project. Now I have a name for my project already, that's Digital Insights, but if you want to type something here, you can go on. But I want to install this project inside just this one folder. So I'll just press a period and then press enter. And do I like to use TypeScript for this project? No, I don't want to use TypeScript. ESLint, I also don't want to use no ESLint. Would you like Tailwind CSS? Yes, we're going to build this project with Tailwind CSS. And the source directory, I don't want to use the source directory. This is a bit old school. I want to use the new way that Next.js actually structures its folder. So I'll click on no. And the app router, yes, definitely. I would like to use the app router for this project. And would you like to customize your import alias? I will show you how this is going to work exactly, the import alias, but just click on no for now. And as you can see, it's going to install all these dependencies that I need for my Next.js 13 project. So while the installation is going on, I can show you the folder structure here. So we have the app. This is where you put all of your applications folders, for example, the pages, and everything goes in here. And this is the root folder where your entire application begins to build from. The next thing I want you to notice is that there's the Tailwind CSS config file over here. And this is obviously the Tailwind that we're going to use. And we shall come back to this folder also when we are customizing it. We shall have to customize it a little bit. And in the public folder is where your assets are going to be. Obviously, if you have like icons, if you want to have things like images, if you want to have your logo or anything like that, all of that is going to go into the public folder. We shall also use this Next.js config file. You'll see when and how we're going to use this. Just leave it for now. And I think we are done. Also in this course, I'm going to try as much to show you how to build a project professionally and how we can track our updates using Git version control. So this is my first and initial commit. So I'll just go over here to the GitHub and I will just say this is my initial commit and I'll commit my changes. And when I open my terminal again, I want to push this to the main repository. So I'll just type in here git push -u origin, origin main. So this is going to push this project to my main repository. So when I come back to GitHub, I just want to show you this real quick. So when I come back to Digital Insights, we should see that it has pushed this application, the first commit, and it's just pushed it literally right now. So that is how you work with version control. Now back to VS Code. I just want to show you how to do this. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create our first branch. So when you click on these three dots and you come to branch, you can say create branch. Now normally I like naming mine feature if it's something new that adds up to the project, or if it's a bug, I will just write here bug fix and then I will type in the name of the bug. But in this case, it's a feature because we are now building the project. So feature, the next thing we're going to do is, well, we want to set up Tailwind CSS. Because remember in this project, we're using Tailwind. So I also want to show you the few tweaks you can do with Tailwind CSS. Now, before we go to Tailwind CSS, I want to just explain the folder structure and what exactly happens. Now, I want you to notice two things. And we have this layout and we also have this page. I'm just pressing Alt and Z so that no text leaves the screen over here. Just realize when I press Alt and Z again, we have a line that goes all the way. I don't want that because I've put the font really big so that you can see. Maybe extend this also a little bit all the way. Now this looks better actually. Now we have this layout. Now this layout is the entry point to your application. As you can see, it has the HTML and it has the body, and also we have the meta tag over here. Now this meta is like we have a title and description, just exactly how we do it with HTML. So this is what we do over here. Now the title of this application, I don't want it to be create next app. My title is a blog called Digital Insights, and this is created by Abu. I mean, you can type this anything that you want, but this is created by me. And the other thing I want you to notice that we have a font. This is a font called Inter. It's such a good font. I love using Inter, by the way. It's really good font. So I'll just keep Inter for now.
And then since this is basically a JSX file, so I just like to rename my folders to be all look the same. So I'll just press F2 and I'll name this JSX. And the same thing with pages. Now these pages, I want you to notice, say again, control and tilde to open my terminal, and I want to run this application. So npm run dev to run my application. So when I go to my browser and go to localhost port 3000, and I should see digital insights. I'm going to zoom this in a little bit, about 200, so that you can see what I'm doing. Maybe 175 or 150, that's perfect. And you can notice up here on the tab, it's now called Digital Insights. This is what I just renamed it. If you remember from the layout, I renamed this to Digital Insights. So this is exactly what you're seeing up here. And that's how you can rename your entire application. And this is just the default boilerplate look from Next.js. They're just telling you how to get started and everything. We're going to do away with all of this and bring in our own styles. So back to VS Code, in this layout is where everything is starting from, and I'm going to explain all of this shortly in a little bit. So Control Z so that you see everything. Now back to pages, I'm also going to rename this, and I'm just going to call it .jsx the same way. And this might crash a little bit, but it's just to restart the whole server again, and now we are back. So everything is now .jsx and it shows React. Now, like I said earlier, Next.js is basically React.js. Literally, it's as simple as that. It's basically the same thing. Now, in this pages.jsx, this is where we have this layout is actually coming in as the children. Now, anything that says the children, and that becomes anything that comes in here. So for example, now in this layout file, as you can see, you can have any folder structure that you want in the end. You can have, like, for example, you can have a contact page with other children inside it. So anything inside that directory is going to be the children of that specific page. So like in this case, we have, this is the root layout. And in the root layout, that's where, like I said, that's the entry point to the entire application. And now we have this pages.jsx. Now anything named as a page is going to be something that you're going to visually see on the screen. So for example, we have this main tag, obviously we have these divs, which we're not going to use anyway. So I'll just highlight all of this all the way down, and I'm just going to delete so that we can start with our own blog post application. So all the way here, I'm going to just delete all of that. I don't need it. And I'm just going to call this is my home page for now. So just save that. When you come back to our application, we should see home page. Now, the other thing I also don't like is this black background. As you saw in the application, I don't have a black background, so I want to do away with this. So back to VS Code, I'm just gonna come to Tailwind CSS, and in this background over here, I'll just do away with all of this for now. In this extend, I'll remove that. I don't need that. That's by Next.js when they build for you the initial project. I don't need that. Now, to remove that background, we have a file called globals.css. Now, this has many things in here that we actually not going to need, like all of this. I'm just going to take away all of this and just delete and then save this. Now, that background color comes from over here. Now, what I'm going to do is just delete also all of this. We shall come back to this body and set up our own. So I'll just save that. And when I come back to my application, I should see a white background. Now, this is what I want. Back to VS Code. If you notice, the thing is that this file has like a certain padding from the top. This word homepage has a padding from the top. Now, all of that is coming from Tailwind CSS. When we go back to this page over here, we can see we have padding. Now, this padding means padding from all sides. If you put this, if you just hover your mouse over any CSS class of Tailwind, it will give you a hint what exactly it's doing in the background. Like, for example, this P-24, it gives it a padding of 6 rem or 96 pixels. Now, this is all around, top, bottom, left, right. So I don't want that. So I'll just take this out. And when I save it and back to my browser, I should see the home page has gone all the way up. Now, the other thing also is that this is centered. Now, if you've used Flexbox before, you can see over here, this is Flex column. Yes, I want this, and I want Flex to have my display to be Flex. And minimum height is screen. Yes, that's very good. And I don't want any of this. I'll just remove this justifying center and align item center. So I'll just save that. And when I come back to my application, I should see homepage all the way to the left. And I can now start designing my own look from this point on. Now back to VS Code. First thing I want to do is I want to bring in my colors. First, I want to have my brand color. Second, I want to have my text color. And third, I want to have my background color. So many colors to work with. And where are we going to do this from? Now, this is going to be very simple. And first thing I want to do is I want to bring those in the Tailwind CSS. Now, remember, if I type here, for example, if I want the color of this homepage to be red, I can type in text red. And as you can see, it brings me many colors. Text red 600, red 500, and I can choose any of them. When I save it and I come back, I should see the text as is now that red 500. Now back to VS Code, I want to bring in my own colors so that when I type something like that, like text, and then I do this, it should show me at least one of the colors that I have put in. So how are we going to do this? Now this is how we're going to configure Tailwind CSS. And where are we going to configure this from? Tailwind.config.js file. Now remember we had a background here. Now this way we're going to bring in our colors. It's as simple as saying colors, and in this colors it's an object, and I'm just going to copy paste the colors that I used for this project, and I'll just paste this over here. Now these are the colors that I use. I have my brand color, I have my dark color, I have even my background has its own color. It's not white exactly. And I have my light accent and my dark accent. Now, these are the colors that I used for my project. Now, to test this out, I'm going to change the text to my brand color. So back to page, and I'll just type in text primary. And as you can see, I already have it, primary brand color. So when I save this and back to my front page, I can see this homepage is now the color of my brand color. Now back to VS Code, we also need to change the background. Now where are we going to do this from? Remember in globals, we left this body open. Now this is where I'm going to change the background of my entire application. So how are we going to do this? It's as simple as saying background color. And remember I brought in some colors in this Tailwind config. So this is my primary BG. BG is just background. So I'll just copy this from here and come and paste it there. So that's my background color. And then I also want my text color to be something. So my text color is going to be this primary dark color over here. So I'll just copy this also and paste this in there, and I save it. And when I come back to my browser, I should see the primary brand color for the text, but this obviously we changed it from here. So when I remove this brand color, I should see my primary dark color to be my text color. It's not exactly black. It's almost a shade of gray and purple, somewhere in between. And I like it this way. It's not exactly black. Also, black and white can have a weird contrast and can hurt someone's eyes when they're reading your blog. So you really need to match your colors really well. So back to VS Code. The other thing I like to do is I want to separate this global.css file into its own folder so that in this app directory, I only have things that are running the application. I know the globals is part of the application, but I want it outside. We are not going to touch this file after setting it up initially. On the root directory, I'll create another directory here. I'll just call it styles. And then in these styles, I'll come back to my app.js, and I'm going to click and drag this file into the styles directory. It will ask me, do you want to move it? Yes, I want to move it in there. So that now this styles directory, I can just forget about it completely. I don't need it anymore. Okay, I need it, but I won't come back to edit it or anything like that. This application might break. Let's go back to our front end and check. It's telling us it cannot resolve this globals.css because remember, we have moved that file. Back to VS Code, let's see how to fix this. This is a simple fix. Now, the reason why it is not reading that file, remember, we have this layout and this is the entry point to our entire application. So this error is actually coming from this file over here. So when we go all the way to the top, it was importing global.css in the same directory and it's called global.css. But we have moved this file into another folder. Remember import alias, what I was telling you. Before we would do something like this: go back out of this file and then open another file and then go to styles.css, all of that. But sometimes this makes it really hard. If you have like a very long line of folders, maybe 2 folders outside and then 2 folders inside into another one, so it will be like very long. Next.js makes it very simple with an alias. Now the alias I was talking about is the @. Immediately we put the @, it goes back to the root directory of your application. And all you need to do is that tell this file to go to the root of this project and / and then go into styles and then / pick for me globals, if I can spell it, .css. And when I save this back to my application, they should work. I don't think I'm gonna need most of this anymore. This is children. I don't think I'm gonna need this anymore actually, and I won't need all of this. And now, since we are done with setting up Tailwind CSS and we have looked at the folder structure, now we can build our header, which is the navigation, and the footer of our application. And like I said, this is a professional way of building applications. So the next thing I'm going to do is go back to my source control, and then you can name this whatever you want. I'll just say Tailwind setup. Simple as that. And I'm going to commit this. And after committing it, I will publish this branch, and I'm comfortable with this branch. So after it is published, I will go back, and as you can see, feature Tailwind CSS branch had recent pushes less than a minute ago. So I'll create a compare and create pull request. That's perfect. Able to merge. Everything is okay with me. And I will merge this to the main branch. So I'll just come all the way down. It does the checks. You can type here, obviously, the things that you want. But for the case of this course and to make it shorter, I will just go ahead and just click next. And now it has merged it. In the next one, I'll create another branch. And because I don't want to tamper with the previous branch, I'll create another branch. So this is also a feature. So this is going to be the navbar and footer branch. So that in case something has failed here, I can just go back to the previous branch. I don't need to spoil anything in that other previous branch. Back to my file structure. Now, just like React, this is exactly like React, honestly speaking, Next.js. So I'll create another folder here. I'll just call it components. And in these components, I'm going to create my first component, which is the navbar. And by convention, all components, we name them starting with a capital letter. So navbar.jsx, and over here I have an extension that I'm using. So when I type in RAFCE, it will create for me a boilerplate code for React. This is literally just like React. And this extension is called ES7 React Redux React Native Snippets. And as you can see here, you just type in something and it creates for you a boilerplate code. I don't need to write all of this, import React, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to write any of that. It will import for me straight away. I'll just remove this over here and I'm going to save this. Now, the question is, where exactly are we going to put this navbar component? Now, you might think, since this pages here is the one that is running the entire application, obviously, like you saw, this homepage is the one that we are seeing over here, the homepage. But think about it. If we imported this navbar in this homepage, in this page where this homepage is written, what if somebody navigates to another page? Do you think they're going to see that navbar? The question is no, they will not see that navbar. We want the navbar to appear everywhere in our entire application. So what are we going to do? The thing we're going to do is it's really simple. Other than importing it to this page.jsx, we're going to import it to the layout.jsx. You must have guessed this one right, I'm sure. So we are importing it over here to layout.jsx. And then remember what I told you. These children are the pages, but this layout is already running and it's the one that's holding all of these children. So we're going to treat this exactly as we would treat any other component or any other file. So all the way to the top, I'm just going to import navbar. And you can see it's already importing for me. And again, this import alias again works here because these two files are in two different folders. One of them is in app, the other is in components. So it has to get out. But other than typing 2 periods and then /, just tell it this @ just means go back to the root folder and then go to this components folder and then pick me the navbar file. So that's what happened there. So all the way to the bottom in the body, so right above the children, I'm just going to call my navbar component over here. So I'm going to save that. Back to this application, you can see I have the navbar. So this means that this navbar will always appear in every page that you navigate to, as we are going to see very shortly. Back to VS Code, I'm also going to create one for my footer. So just over here, I'll create another file and I'll call this is my footer.jsx, and I'll do the same thing with that extension RAFCE, and it will create a boilerplate like this. We don't need this import, by the way, so I'll just take that out, and this is my footer. Do I have this here? Yes, I took it out. And again, we want the footer to appear on every page or in any location where the user is. So we are going to put it in the layout file. So import footer, and as you can see again, it has gone back to using this alias. So automatically that is what's going to happen from this point on. And obviously the footer is going to be at the bottom of the page. So footer and self-closing tag, and I'm going to save this. So back to my application, I should see the footer all the way to the bottom over here. And I'm just going to change the color of this footer. Now, this is where initially we're going to bring in Tailwind CSS. So over here, I'll just say class name. Remember, in JavaScript, JSX is just HTML in JavaScript. So we can't use class. If we say class, that is already a reserved word in JavaScript. So we say class name. Class name for this, first things first, I want to change my background. So BG, I want to make it the primary brand color that I have already. So, and I'm also going to change its height, give it some height. My footer needs height. So with Tailwind CSS, the reason why you're seeing when I want to give it a height, when I press H, and it gives me a hint of anything of an H that I can do. This is height of 3, height of 4, height of whatever. So if I picked maybe height of, for example, I want height of 20 for this case, but where am I getting those hints? Now those hints are coming from another extension. This extension is called Tailwind CSS IntelliSense, and it's from tailwind.com, Tailwind Labs. So it's the official Tailwind extension for VS Code, and you can see it has over 3 million downloads already. So it's very, very popular. I would advise you to get this as well. So I have this, and I can save this now. And when I come back to my application, I should see my brand color and my footer is over here. Maybe have this footer in the middle of this div. Back to VS Code, I'll just have a flex. I really love to use flex, by the way, as my display. So flex, and then I'm just going to justify center. So when I save this, back to this, I should see my footer in the middle of the page. Perfect. If you want to have it also in the middle, vertically in the middle, so this is horizontally in the middle. So vertically in the middle, I'm just going to say items center. Save this, and back to my browser, I should see footer also in the middle, vertically and horizontally. So we are done with the footer. Now back to the navbar, we want to switch up the navbar also. So back to VS Code, and I just want to have to the right my logo, obviously, like you saw on my already completed application. And now going back to the navbar over here, we're just going to have two things. One is the image, that's the logo, and two is the navigation. Those are already two divs. So the first div here is going to be for the image. I can just type here image for now. The second div, if I can spell image correctly, and the second div over here is going to be my nav. I can actually call it the nav. This is going to be the navigation. And this navigation here is going to have 3 things. So I can put this in paragraphs. It doesn't matter how you arrange it. So I'll just call this blog, and Shift, Alt, and the down arrow. You can copy that same line down. So blog, and then about, and then the one below, I'm just going to call it contact. Something like that. That's perfectly fine with me. And I'm going to save this, and we can have a look, and it's looking something like this, but we are going to fix it. No worries. Back to VS Code. And in the first div, I'm just going to bring a class name, obviously. And this class name, I'm going to have it as flex. And so there's flex row which is the one I have, because if we see over here now, these are in a column. The image and the contact and about are all in a column, but I want them to be in a row, just like a navbar would look like. I can have this. So this is flex row. In the flex row, I want to give a padding. I don't want my text to start all the way from the end of the screen. So I'll give the padding in the x-axis as 40. I want that padding. That worked with me perfectly fine. So when I come back to see, I should see something like this. Now, I want the image on one side and this navigation on the other side. So what do? And in the flex, there's something called justify. Now, justify has so many options, but I want them to justify and put a space between the two divs. So when I come back to my application, I should see the image on this side and this blocks on this side. Now, I also want this to appear in a row. So I'll do the same thing I did up here. So I'll just come to this nav and call this class name. So I want this flex and I want this to be flex row. And when I save this back to my application, but as you can see, they are so close to each other. So there's a class called space. So space in the x-axis, I could give it 4. So normally I like to use 4, 2, 4, 8, 16, and like that. I mean, I think that's better to the eye when someone is looking at your website. So as you can see, spaces of 4 is perfectly fine by me, but it's so close to the top. And all I'm going to do, since it's so close to the top, I'll just put a margin to the top maybe, and I'm just going to give this another 4. So when I save this back to my application, I should see a small margin to the top, but we need to give this margin not only to this one, but to all of it. So I'm just going to come back to my application and I'm going to take away this margin from here and I'm going to cut it from there, Control X, and I'm going to paste it up here so that everything is moved down a little bit. You can even see the image and the blogs have moved down a little bit. Now it's time to bring in the image. So this image is basically going to be my logo. So I'm going to come all the way to the top, and in Next.js, we have a very nice image component that Next.js has created that really tries to make viewing of images very easy. And this is called the image. So I'm just going to import image from Next image all the way down to where this image. I don't need to say image anymore. Here, I'll just bring in the image component, and it's a self-closing tag. And it basically has a source, src for source. Now this source, I'm just going to have my image inside my public folder. In here, I will just create a new folder in public. I'm just going to call it image or images. Doesn't matter really. You can call it anything you want. And I'm just going to drag my image all the way in there. Just copy it in there. I had this already. This is my logo for my application. As you can see, it's just a blog. So just a small B in here. I'll just bring in my image from that source. Now, this is very simple. As soon as you press the /, it's already in the public. So I'll just go to images, and then that image is just logo.png. So I'm going to save that. But after saving that, that is not all you need to do. Let's come back. And as you can see, it's going to have an error because it's telling you this image, it needs to have a width property. You have to give it a width property. So back to the image, all the way here, and we can give it a width property, and the width that worked with me was 50. And if we're giving it a width, why not we give it a height? So also 50, and we're also going to give it an alt. In case the image doesn't load, we want another word to appear there. So just call it logo, and I'm going to save this, and back to my application, we should see a nice looking B over here. But remember, in this image, we had a very nice looking rounded background. So that's what we're going to use the div for. So back to the application, and in this div, we're just going to have a class name, and BG, we're going to have the primary background, and we're going to have a padding of 2, padding all around, and then padding in the x-axis, we're going to have it as 4. This is what worked for me, and you can do whatever you want, by the way, it doesn't really matter. And I have rounded to be full. So I'm going to save this, and back to my application, I should see a nice looking rounded logo like that. But as you can see, these things are not in line over here. Yes, this logo is over here, but as you can tell, there is something about this blog that is all the way to the top. And I want to bring all of this somewhere in the middle, like vertically in the middle, both of them. So back to VS Code and all the way to the initial div up here. Since I'm already using Flex, I'm just going to say items, center, and I'm going to save this, and that should do the trick. When I come back to my application, I should see this already centered. That looks perfect for me. Now let's see how it looks like when we have it in smaller devices. So when I click on this, and I can just drag this, and as you can see, even in a small device, or this is the size of a mobile phone, as you can see, we still have this padding of about 40, and we do not want that. We want this padding to be less than 40 over here for smaller devices. And even on tablet, we want it to at least occupy everything up here. So how do we fix that? Back to VS Code, all the way up here, we had this padding of 40, but we can only say this padding of 40, let it only target the large screen. So LG means a large screen, just like how you'd have in CSS, you'd have media queries. But here we already have media queries, so large screen means above a tablet and beyond. Now, a tablet and below, I wanted to have a padding in the x-axis of only 4. And this worked for me. You can change it the way you want. So when I come back, you can see I only have a padding of 4. In a smaller screen, it's only a padding of 4. But on a large screen, like a laptop, what do you know? We have a padding of 40. And this behavior is perfect for me. So I'll just come here and move away from that, and I'll continue with my application. Now I already have the header up here, and with this comes to the end of navigations. We are done with this navigation. We shall come back and talk about routing and how we can handle all of these navigations to all these different pages. But for now, let's move on to the next thing, and we can bring in the hero section, and we can also bring in the blog card or the blog section. Now I can start working with the hero section. Now in the components folder, I'll just create a new file. Again, this is a component by convention. This is going to be in uppercase. So hero.jsx, and I'm going to save that. So using my extension RAFCE, and I don't need this first import already. And this is the hero section. Now, this hero section is only going to appear on the home page. Now, this is where we're going to use this home page over here. We don't need this anymore, this import up here, but we need to import the hero section. Now, since they're in different pages again, it's using the alias. And now all the way down, because I can put it over here, and I'm just going to call it hero section since it's a component, just hero, self-closing tag, and I'm going to save this. And when I come back to my application, you must have guessed I should see hero over here. What I need to do also is I want this hero to also come on the same line as this header. So what I'm going to do is come back to my VS Code, and over here I have all of this is also working in the hero section, and I can put here also a class name, and this class name is just going to be now on the large screen, make it padding X of 40 like that, and on the smaller screen, anything below a large screen, just give it a padding of 4. So when I save this back to my application, I should see it all the way over here. Even if I come to a smaller size screen, I should also see the hero section coming and behaving almost exactly as the navigation. So I don't want this, and now I can exit that. Just minimize this, we might need it later. And now I have my hero section, so we can start working on the hero section. So first things first is we need to understand what we're working with. So this hero section, we have the left side, and in the hero section, we have the right side. So the left side is just going to be the words that you saw, and the right side is going to be the little nice family, extended family that you saw there. So that's going to be on the right of this hero section. So from the top, just press Ctrl and Z. I need you to see this. So first things first, I want this to have a flex, obviously, and I want you to start with a flex. So on the smaller screens, I want you to have a flex column, because remember, when it's a smaller screen, I want the text to be up and then the family to be down, because the size of your phone is really small. So have it flex column, but on any device that is greater than a medium-sized device like a tablet, I want you to have a flex row. So row go from left to the right. And that's how my hero section is going to be like. So I'm going to create 2 divs here. Obviously, the first div is the left side, and Shift, Alt, and down arrow, and the second div is the right side. So we have these two divs already that we have created. If we can have a look, just left and right, but we need to separate them. So how are you going to do this separation? So on the left one, just going to have a class name, and this class name, obviously we want it to be flex, again, just flex, and we want it to be flex column from top to bottom. So flex column because we have these words as you saw them plus the button. And also from over here, we need to have a space in the y-axis of 4, which I found to be enough for me. So justify end, that is at the bottom of the screen. And then the other thing we need to do is the padding in top and bottom. I want it to be 8. As you notice, I'm using 248. 248. Those work out really nice according to visuals of any page. So, and then I want this to be flex 1, occupy the entire space that you can take for that left hand side. Now, on the right hand side, what are we going to do? Because remember, the right hand side is where the image is going to be. So just class name over here, and we're just going to also have a flex, and then justify center. We want all the text to appear in the middle, and then also flex 1. And when we come back to our application, we can see this is left and this is right. And we can also add some margins to the top. So this one is not having the margin. We can fix that by taking this padding top and bottom over here, and then we can cut it from here and move it to the top one, Control V, so we can have the same margin from both sides. As you can see, they are now in line. So on the left hand side, I already have all of this written out, so I won't really waste any of your time by having you watch me type all of this out. So I'm just going to copy all of this and then maybe try to explain what exactly is happening. So copy that and to the left hand side and then paste it in there. So when I save this and come back to my code, you should see it's telling me it's expected something in class name and something is happening. It doesn't see the link. Oh yeah, we need to bring in the link, this link. Now, this link is something in routing and navigation in Next.js. So for example, if you want to move from one page to another or from one section to another, there is something inbuilt with Next.js called the link. So link from next link. So when I save that and I come back to my application, I should see something like this. It's already looking very nice. And everything else is just design, obviously. And I have this H1 and I've capitalized it, meaning first letters have to be capital. And the size of the text is 3XL. And in the medium sized devices, make it a bigger text, that is 5XL, and then font, just make it semi-bold. And I have this paragraph. I don't need any styles on this paragraph. Just keep it exactly the way it is. You can actually remove this. You don't need it actually here. So save that. And all the way down now I have this link. So when you click on this link, it takes you to the contact. Now, we shall come back and talk about all of this, but for now, just know that this link requires an href, just like how you'd have an anchor tag or the a tag. And it has a few things, obviously. It has the background color, it has the flex, and I've justified it to the center. That's the text, obviously, and the background, and I've given it a width of 44 and a padding y-axis, top and bottom, and a small round to the edge to make it a little bit smoother, as you can see over here. Now, to the right, I need to bring in that nice family. So I have this image already, and I'm just going to copy this image to my application. Again, I'll put it under images over here. So I'll just copy that and bring it to images in there. And that's the nice looking family. And in the hero section, and I can also just copy this from my repo. I don't need you to see me type all of this out. So on the right side over here, I'll just paste that in and just tell you what's happening here. So this is the image. Again, I need to go back all the way to the top and import image. Otherwise this will break. So import image from next image. So when I save that, they should be okay now. And all the way to the bottom, I have the source where it's coming from and an alt in case the image doesn't show. And I have the width of 500 and a height of 100. Those worked well for me. So back to my application, I should have my hero section already working out. How cool is that? And what do you know? This hero section is responsive to all mobile devices. So when I switch to mobile devices over here, you can see, and goes down and comes back up. As you can see, fully responsive. So we are building this from scratch, yes, but I'm showing you how to build and customize and have your website responsive for all device sizes. How cool is that? So we are done with the hero section, and the next thing we're going to do now is go back and save this and back to Git repo, and I'm just going to say this is hero section, maybe give it a space over there, and I'm going to save this and publish it, and back to my website, back to my repo, and again back to the code. I should see a pull request coming, so create a pull request, create pull request over there, and all the way down merge this to the main branch. So back to my website, I wanted to start creating the blogs now. This is where the fun part is about to start. So back to VS Code, and we are done with the hero section. I don't need to come back to this anymore, by the way. And now still back on the pages. Now the blog is going to come below the hero. So as you must have guessed, in the component folder, I'm going to add another file called the blog section. Again, capital B for components by convention, and RAFCE to create this. And I have my blog section coming up, and save that. And when I come back to this, I should import the blog section. Import blog section is already giving me a hint. So over there, and I can just call this the blog section, and I'm going to save this. Now back to VS Code, I should see a blog section over here. Now we forgot one thing. Actually, we forgot to create another branch. We are still working on the hero section, but my apologies. But if you created another branch over there, that is perfect. But I'll just go on and create my blog section. Now, in order for us to see what's happening, I'm just going to comment this out. That is control and / I'm just going to comment out the hero for the time being, and hopefully I can remember to bring it back at the end of the project. So I've commented it out so that we can only see the blog section. Now back to VS Code, I want to start working on the blog section. Now, how am I going to start working here? So first things first, at the blog section over here, and what I want to do is I want to bring in some styles. Now, again, I will just copy this now from my repo and just paste this in, and then try to explain what exactly is happening other than typing everything out to save some time. At least you've seen how Tailwind CSS works already from this point out. So I've given it again a flex column. In the large devices, I want this to be 40, not 24. And the padding of X in small devices, just give it a padding of 4. Now, in this blog section, we have a section that has the title. You saw the title blog. So I'll just copy that first part and I'll just paste this in here. So Control S to save. And what's happening here? So I've just given it a flex and I've put it in the center, and margin top and bottom of 4. This is y-axis, top and bottom. And now this is the H1 that is holding the word blogs, and I've capitalized it, meaning that this first letter should be capital letter. Even if I put this a small letter, it should still transform it to capital letter. And the text is 5XL, that's really big, and the font of semi-bold. So when I come back to my application, I should see the word blogs. Even though, remember, we made this a small letter in the code, but a capitalized class is going to make it capital. So back to VS Code, we have the blogs already working. Now, the next thing I want to do is to bring in the unordered list. Now, this is going to be a list of the blogs that we are going to see. So I'm going to paste this in here, and we have some classes. So flex also, flex row, obviously from left to right, and then flex wrap. Flex wrap means that if there is no, for the last child, if there's no more space at the end of the screen, what you're going to do is just wrap it. Now, wrapping means go back to the next line. How cool is that? So justify evenly means that the spaces from left to right should all be even of any child in this list, in this unordered list. And then this is where we're going to bring in the cards. Now, what are we going to do? Again, a component. We're going to create another component called the blog, not the blog, but blog card.jsx, and then RAFCE. Very, very simple, honestly. And I'm going to delete all of this. and save that. And then now in here, there are a couple of designs, obviously. Again, I won't type everything out from this point onwards, because I think from this point onwards, you should be able to type your own tail in CSS. Now, I have a few classes that I want to bring in, and I'm going to copy this. This might be a very long class, by the way, but you're going to, I'm going to try to explain all of the classes that I do, and everything that I do here, I'm going to try to explain. So I'm going to paste that in. I don't need this div over here. I just have the one div, but I need to close the div here. Otherwise, I'm going to have an error. And there's a second one here. So that's all I need. So save that. Now, what's happening here? Obviously, I want a flex column, and space in the x-axis of every child inside this div will have a space of 2, and the BG will be the primary background color, and the width of this card is going to be 72. And when I hover over it, I'm going to have a scale. Now this is scaling. 100 is the initial, like 100% of that specific item. Now for this entire card, 100 is the size of the card, but then 105 is a small and very light hover. That means a very scaling a little bit, as you saw from my complete application. And transition, I'm just going to set it to transform, and duration is 200 milliseconds, and ease out, that means give it a smooth transition, and have it slightly rounded to have the edges a little bit rounded, and I'm going to hide any overflow. Now, those were a lot of classes for this one. Now, the first part obviously is the image. Now, all of these blogs have images. Now, in this first part, I have an image already that we're going to start with, but remember, like I said, everything that you see over here is going to come from Sanity. Now, Sanity is going to hold, it's like our database. It's going to hold everything. How cool is that? All I'm going to do is, I'm going to bring in my initial image, and I'm just going to bring and copy this to images, paste it over there. This is going to be my initial image, just to show how it's going to look like. It's not what I'm going to use in the end, but just to show what exactly it's going to look like. Now already, since we are using images, you must have guessed, we have to import image from Next image, since we're going to use images. Over here, the first thing we need to do is we have a div for the image. Now, this is going to be a div over here for the image. Now, just going to bring in the image, self-closing tag. Now, what is the source going to be? So src, like you must have guessed, surprise, 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 just /, and then I'm going to go to images, and then /, I called it laptop /min.png. So save that. Is it a PNG? Confirm it. It's a JPEG. Sorry, it's not a PNG. So it's a JPEG. So I'm going to save that. Now back to my application. We don't see it. What exactly is happening? Why aren't we seeing that component that we just created? So the reason we're not seeing it, obviously, is we need to bring this component to the blog section. Simple as that. So import blog card. It's already giving me here. So if it's in the same directory, as you can see, there's no need for you to use the alias, the @alias, because already we are in that folder. So just go in the same folder. This is what this means, in the same folder. Just get for me blog card. So all the way down, we bring it now here. Now over here, I'm going to create a list item. Now li, that's exactly. Now just li is going to be what is going to hold all of this, because remember, ul means unordered list. Now I want to bring in the list item, the item itself. Now the item itself is just the blog card self-closing tag. We have some classes over here, and we're going to bring in some classes, but let's first save this. I want to have like 4 or 5 of them, something like that, so that we can see exactly what is happening. So back to my application, and it's telling me it's missing a width. Okay, yes, we forgot a width property. Always remember, put in the width property in your images. So back to the blog over here, we just put the source, but we don't have the width property. Even the alt, we can add the alt over here. We can just put here laptop, put any word you want. And in the end, we also need the width and the height properties. So width is 300 and height is 50. Simple as that. And I'm going to save this and back to my application. I should see a very nice looking, and you can see the hover effect. It has a very nice hover effect, but something is happening here. This first child is not moving down. What's going on? So back to this VS Code and in the block section, and this first child over here, we should do something with the first child. So we're just going to give it a margin top of 8. The reason we're giving it a margin top of 8 is because over here we have a space Y of 8. That's why we're giving it margin top of 8. You're going to see how we're going to target the first item when we are dynamically bringing in these blog cards from our database. So currently I've fixed that problem temporarily, but you're going to see how we're going to do it dynamically. So when you have, it has a nice hover effect, as you can see, really nice and very interesting. I love this already. It's looking up. And back to VS Code, we just need to finish up these cards now, and back to VS Code, and we can look at the card. And after the image, we have another div here. Now this div is what's going to carry everything else that we saw down there, from the name of the author to the date it was written to the initial text and to the categories and all of that. So here we're just going to have a paragraph, obviously, and you can use a P tag, you can use an H tag, you can use any tag that you want, honestly, that can handle text. So I'm just going to go with the P tag, and I'm going to have this flex. The reason why I want this flex row is because, as you noticed, I have a name on one side and I have the date on the other side. So that's the reason why I want this way. So class name also on this. I have some styles also on this. Maybe move this a little bit away, and I'm just going to copy these styles also, and so that you don't see me typing out everything. So paste them there. So the only thing that's happening here is the font is semi-bold and the text is really small, because I don't want this to be the focus of the entire card, and the text is the primary brand color. So in the meantime, the name here, I'm just going to have Abu. Obviously you can write your own name, and the date is going to be on the other side, maybe June 13th 2023, and I'm going to save this and back to my designs. I should see a very nice looking name and date when this specific blog was published. So back to VS Code, we want to go to the next thing. Now remember, everything we are doing here is going to come from our database. No worries. This, I'm just hard coding this text because we're just designing the card. No worries at all. Now the next one is going to be the title. This title right under the P tag, and we're going to create another div over here for the title, and it's going to have an H1, and obviously this has a class name, also some small styles, and I'm just going to copy this also. I don't want to type all of them out for you to see everything that I'm typing. So how to program, very simple title, just to see how it's going to look like. And when I go back to my application, this is nice. I like the design already. It's already coming up. I like this. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to have another div. Now in this next line is where I'm going to have another div over here. Now this div is going to have the actual blog. Now this is the title of the blog. Now the body of the blog. Now I'm just going to use a P tag for the body of the blog. And I have some class names for the body of the blog. Class name. Now the only class name that I have here is line clamp of 2. Now line clamp basically means if the text is much longer than what you have already, all you can do is have it only in 2 lines. Now let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to come back to my hero section. Where is my hero? And I'm just going to copy all of this text so that you see what exactly I'm talking about. So copy all of this text, don't need this anymore. And down here, I'm going to paste it and I'm going to save it. First, let me remove this line clamp of 2 and I'm going to save it. Now, when I come back to my application, you should see it puts in all the text that's there. But when I bring in the line clamp, Control Z, and I save that, line clamp of 2, wait and see, it's going to have only 2 lines. And as you can see, it's just like someone can basically read what exactly is on the blog, and then makes them want to click and to go on. So we don't put the entire text over there. So that's what line clamp does. So there's line clamp of 3, line clamp of 1. You can pick whichever one you want. And the next part is going to be also very simple. This next part is also going to have the categories section. Now the categories section is also like black in color, obviously. And this is also going to be another div for the category section. Now this also has some class names, obviously. And these class names, I'm just going to copy this also in the end. So copy and paste this here. Now I just want to flex also, flex row, meaning from left to right, and then flex wrap. If there are 3 or 4 or more categories, just wrap them and bring another one down below the other. And I'm just going to have my p tag here now for these categories. Now this first one is just programming maybe, and just to show you that it can have 2 or more, I can copy this down, Shift Alt and down button, and programming maybe cloud or something, doesn't really matter. And this also has some styles, obviously. So class name for this paragraph, and I'm just going to bring my styles in and then explain them momentarily. So paste this in here, and I can just copy all of this and paste this, and also paste it to the next one. So when I paste this, just to explain, border. Now this border just means just put a border around the entire thing. And BG, this is the background, obviously, and the text, the color of the text. Now this text color is just the primary background color, and then the padding top and bottom is 1, padding left and right is 2, and text is really small. XS is a very small text, and rounded full, that means it's going to look like a pill. So when I save that and back to my application, I should see something like this. That is really, really cool. And I think we are done with the designs. And if I bring back, just to show you, before I forget, now I'm just going to bring back the hero, shift and / and bring this back. And when I come back, I should see my nice family there and some blog text. And all the way down, I have my blogs. And let's see if it's going to be responsive. Now, back to these devices, and I can test it with the tablet. What do you know? It's looking very, very nice on the tablet. And what of mobile phone? Bam! There you have it. We are done with our designs. Guys, we are done. So what is next to do is we're going to start introducing Sanity. How cool is that? Let's bring in Sanity. Sanity is really easy to use also. But before we bring in Sanity, let's just do one thing, and that is going to be version control. So over here, I'm just going to call this is blog card design. You can name it anything you want. So I'm going to commit that, and I'm going to sync changes, because we are syncing changes because we didn't create a new branch. So we're just going to sync the same branch. Now back to GitHub and back to the home page. It should be able to tell us that there are some changes that have just come in. And if you want, so if we don't see any changes like this is 19 minutes ago, and we can create a pull request over here. And this pull request is really easy, actually. Just create a pull request, and the pull request is coming from, this is the navbar, just to confirm that it's the one hero section. Actually, sorry, we're going to get a pull request from the hero section. Where is hero section? Feature hero section over here. And there you go. We can create a pull request, and then create a pull request over here, and all the way down, merge it, and then we can confirm the merge. And what do you know? Our code is up to date on the main branch. So next we're going to do is we're going to bring in Sanity.